All right. Should be live. We should be live. I hope everyone can hear me. There's some people working again outside. As per usual, there's been a truck out there doing all the human working things, making the world a better place. I think they're moving dirt around. I'm not totally sure what they're doing. They're moving dirt around, it seems. So I hope everyone's doing amazing. Thank you for joining. Appreciate you. I've been going through it, so I don't know if other people have been. I have a feeling that May, just to get into May, what is May going to be like? May is going to be a bit of a doozy, I think. I have that feeling, and I'm not usually wrong. But it's a doozy because we've received a whole bunch of new light, and sorry, I've got a hair in my mouth. And so what happens when we receive all that new light, I've talked about a few times, we start to see stuff that we didn't really see before, primarily in regards to like our behaviors and patternings and things. A lot of times after we awaken, we start to then fall back into some of our older patterns, and then those pop back up. So we're doing that. But in May, for whatever reason, there is there's a bubble here. There's a bubble, a window of energy. There's a something. Hello, Sabrine. Hello, welcome. Namaste, welcome. There's a bubble. There's a pressure in this month that people are gonna find to be probably, like it will affect everybody, but depending on I guess where everyone is, it'll affect everyone differently, of course. So I'm really saying, honestly, basically nothing, right? I'm just saying, yeah, some stuff's gonna happen. That's my psychic predictions for May. Some stuff is gonna happen. So you're welcome for that. But in all seriousness, some stuff's gonna happen. Yeah, I think so. It's gonna be really interesting because people are gonna be confronted with they were telling me survival fears and leaps of faith, like lots of leaps of faith, lots of like, I have absolutely no reason to believe that this is going to work. Like in the logical world, I can't understand or fathom at all how this would work, but I'm meant to just go forward anyway, and push aside any fears and just sort of recognize that the fears exist, but essentially the way I like to look at it is, instead of having fear, like instead of just being afraid of stuff, we use the fear to build courage, right? Like without fear, there's no courage. Courage doesn't exist. Courage doesn't have a meaning to it, unless there's something to be courageous about, which means standing up for something in the face of fear. And I feel that May is going to be a month of having something to do with survival fears of some kind. Now, survival fears, for example, someone, like me, I've been in a relationship pretty much a lot of the time of my life. So not being in a relationship probably would still be relevant to me for a survival fear, right? Because I would feel perhaps that if I was not in a relationship, that I would not be okay. So I don't actually believe that for myself. I'm sure I have some lingering stuff there around that. I'm certain of that, but that's the type of thing that might show up as survival fears in May. But I think it's all going to be a lot of like, what do I truly want to do with myself? And a lot of opportunities to really observe what's kind of going on in the reality. So today, though, we're going to do a Ka channeling that came in a little while back, that I didn't put on the channel yet. And here, let me just move this over so I can see. Thank you for bearing with me. I'm not the most professional of the bunches of people that stream and all that stuff, but I know what I'm doing, sort of, right? So I guess we'll start it off. And so this channeling I did a little while back, but for whatever reason it popped in. Was it this morning? No, it was last night. Last night popped in to come on and do it today. it's called the Spiral Staircase, and this transmission, I think I received this in an airplane. I might have been in an airplane flying around somewhere, but this transmission came in, and I haven't actually read it since I did it. So this is kind of my re-exposure to it. When I do channelings, I don't even know what I say, like, at all, barely. I catch like little chunks of it. It's hard for me to like listen while the Sean identity steps aside for the channeling to come through. It's hard for me to also listen and like absorb it as well. So I end up reading the channelings and stuff, but I can't even remember this one. So but I'm going to read it, and then I have a bunch of different topics that came through to talk about. So we're going to talk about reality versus perception, and basically perception being our senses, and then universal cycles and impermanence. The idea about the universe serving you, that the universe is what you are serving yourself, and then you are in accord with your experience. So because you are the universe serving yourself, you must be in accord with whatever you're doing, right? You must be, because you're doing it. So you're great, Sabrine. Thank you. That's cheery. I like that. So I'm going to read this channeling, and as with anything that I channel or any information I offer, use your own discernment, do your own research, let go anything that doesn't resonate or feels icky. I'm just trying to offer my perspectives here, and I appreciate you listening, hanging out, and I appreciate all the support. You guys are doing awesome. And I'm doing pretty awesome too, even though today is actually, the last few days have been probably like the worst, probably kind of the worst, like if I'm judging them, if I'm deciding to judge them, they've been kind of the worst days in a long time for me. So it's really valuable. It's really valuable. I guess before I get into the channeling, maybe I'll just reflect on that a little bit. When we're faced with the most, like the worst stuff that we can think of, the worst, right? For our life, right? We all have the things that we believe would be the worst for us to experience. But when we're faced with some of those things that seem to be either we're directly experiencing the worst things, or we're almost experiencing like what seems to be leading to that, right? We can get pretty panicky, and it's been really interesting to watch my mind just go bananas, freaking out about everything. It's amazing to watch the ego just lose control over itself. And I don't ever recommend trying to control any of that. It's the ego that likes to control things. Whenever anything is trying to be controlled, anything at all, it's ego. So, we're sort of meant to learn more acceptance, surrender, and openness to what is. Even if it kind of sucks, right? if we're observing something and it just sucks, we're still supposed to learn how to like love that. That's like primarily what our learning here is, honestly. Like one of the things that the guides told me I don't know if it was years ago, but it was a while ago, that basically like the way to make sure that as a graduating soul that like that if your goal is to not have more human lifetimes, for example, like you think that, for example, that you'd really want to be out of this hellhole, let's say you're considering it like that, that type of orientation to this place will actually indicate that you're more likely to stay, because you haven't finished all the love. You haven't found the love yet, totally. It's here. And that's the only reason I say that, is because it's here. And so, but you have to find it and choose it first before you go on to the next grade, so to speak, right? You can actually go the other way and still move on. So you can actually learn to not accept all, to only accept particular aspects of reality and really harness this negativity, and then graduate that way through negativity. You can do that also. That is a pathway. But primarily, if you're here, you're going to be looking to polarize positively, most likely. And if you're on this channel, almost certainly. So I don't think that there's actually that many souls here trying to polarize negatively, to be honest. But but there certainly are always. So anyway, so I'll get into the channeling now that I've rambled for a little while. That's how I go. So I do the rambling thing. I just let the words flow out of my face, and that kind of just ends up being good enough usually. So I'll read the channeling though, and then we'll talk about that, and then we'll get into more of the other topics. And thank you again for listening. And again, just discard anything that doesn't resonate. So this is called the Spiral Staircase. We are Ka, and we greet you in the light and in the love of the one infinite creator. The vibration we offer requires an agreement. And if you, as witness, find resonance in this frequency, the agreement is in consort with our vibration, and the teaching may begin. The agreement is a simple one. It is an agreement that the words we express to you as catalysts to know yourselves are true. You will know them to be true as they are observed, and this is the agreement. One who does not agree may yet consume the works, though the words and concepts will tumble about the mind complex for later realization at the appropriate time. It is not for us to convince, quarrel, or demand attention. The candle does not apologize to the darkness for shining its inherent beauty, light, and love. Love is what we are. Love is what you are. In love, you will find union with yourself, and in union, you will learn mastery. Mastery is the transcendence of the lower self or false identity with its creations of story, history, narrative, and identification. Mastery is the upliftment of all by recognizing the divinity in all things, recognizing the divinity in all beings, recognizing the service being offered by the Creator to the Creator in all moments so that the Creator may know itself. The journey ahead is often described by us and viewed by this instrument as a spiral staircase upwards, upwards, ever reaching upwards, never ending, never beginning, and further still including all beings. All beings are upon this staircase. Where the top seems to be so engulfed in light that one cannot see, this is where what you could call your higher self stands as witness, guide, and loving companion to your journey. Each new step to elevate the awareness and presence of your divinity will assess your capacity for holding the light offered at its higher vibration. Contrary to what many will teach, we will summarize as the ideal requirement of one to maintain high vibration. Sorry, let me reread that. Contrary to what many will teach, which we will summarize as the ideal requirement of one to maintain high vibration, we will say that these ideas are thoughtful but misinformed. Your true vibration is always pure divinity. You are already pure, you are already whole, you are already potentiated as the perfected divine self, and the staircase is the pathway to remembering this through experiences of your creation, which welcome and invite you to know yourself through. The physical realm within which humanity resides allows for many things. There are varying natural laws in physics, which are informed by the Logos and its free will design. One of the opportunities that we like to call the opportunity to pretend is what ensures one may act or speak in a way that is low vibration. It may be seen that the world is a school, played as a game or sung as a song. It will be completed, and there is no rush. When the false identity or the costume adorned to pretend to be anything other than divine is acting, it is calling into manifestation the conditions required for the pretending to feel real. These conditions are ones such as, the act I witness now is abhorrent and I must correct it. The act, in truth, is divine service. It may not be anything other than this in truth. Though the false self or lower self must pretend that they are not divine, that others are not divine, or that the event that has occurred is not of the Creator's will. There is no occurrence that is not of your creation. If you witness it, you have brought it to being, and you will claim upon it the divinity or lack of divinity. Both of these claims are false claims unless the claiming of divinity is universal, applied to all things, all thoughts, all emotions, all speech, and all beings. Divinity is not claimed by the human self. Divinity requires no recognition of you. It is perfect. Your divine self does not require others to love her. Your divine self does not require others to see her. In this way, she does not require you to be aware of her presence in you as you. Nevertheless, she is here, now. Due to this transmission and the imbued vibrations of our social memory complex, those who have observed this transmission in agreement may find discomfort arise as they notice that they are pretending. Pretending will begin to feel like deception. Humbly, we ask all seekers to be gentle with themselves in this process. Many paradoxical encounters will arise as the divine self opens her eyes and learns to tread in a world where things are not what they once were. Events will transpire, changes will occur, and we ask that in the moments you feel fear, recall these words. I am the divine in form here. I am here to serve. I know my value, which is inherent in my being. I know my intention. I see this situation with the eyes of my divine self, and although my lower self aspect of me is feeling afraid, I recall that only love is true and only fear may lie. I fear myself, and therefore I may choose to elevate my awareness of this moment to see beyond my fear and take the next step up the spiral staircase despite my hesitation. This need not be verbatim, and we encourage each student to determine the words which they feel calls their heart back to them. Mastery is not achieved. Mastery is your being. Many millions of years from this moment. Therefore, none need rush. There is time, always peace. Any element of hurrying is a manifestation of the lower self which feels fear that she is not doing her best, that she is not capable, or that she is moving too slowly. You are not catching a train. You are the train. You stop, go, and wait idle as it suits you. The lessons will be completed. This much is known. When one is in school, they do the work. It becomes then only a simple choice of the one who is learning. Shall I learn of and in love, or shall I resist? Regardless, the lessons will come. What say you, O student? Do you meet what comes with eyes of your divinity, or does what come perturb you? The lions which guard the inner sanctum will not step aside until all burdens, all names, titles, and identities, and all is laid before the Creator. Those who wish to continue and have mastery upon their heart will stand before the altar, and they will gaze into the eyes of their divine partner, which has always been, always waiting, always loving, and always in merry rejoice at your adventures in discovering yourself. She will not bend in her purity, so she must be met at the vibration she holds, and this may only be accomplished by one who has surrendered all. One interested may observe the metaphorical sacrifice of Isaac, son of Abraham, to the divine will. Each of you will, when your time comes, sacrifice your son or daughter to the Creator so that he or she may be resurrected as the Christ. Your lower self may be seen as your child, an aspect of you that is not left behind but is rather born anew in the light of your divine self within. It is she who sacrifices all she has known herself as to realize that she is the Creator, and she may step forth into her kingdom in love and harmony with all that exists. It has been our great pleasure and honor to offer this transmission and contact experience through this instrument. We are grateful to the instrument for his persistent return to his knowing, and we cradle him in our hearts always. He has experienced tremendous pains in his forgetting, and we recognize with love his service. You are all divinely loved. You are all adored. You are all perfect. We leave you now in the glory and the peace of the one infinite Creator. Woo! That was a longer one. So I hope you guys like that. I guess for me, I remember this channeling now. The most important thing that I got out of this channeling for me was like the topic that we'll probably get into later, which is that you're in accord with your experience. So in that channeling, they mentioned that basically anything that we observe, we have created. Happy new moon. Oh, is it a new moon? Happy new moon. Welcome, Andrew. Thank you for joining. Yeah. I love new moons. I love all the moons. I'm kind of a, what's the word for it? Lunatic? Not an actual lunatic, not a clinical lunatic, but like a like a when the moon goes full or new, things get a little silly for me, in my experience. Yeah, things get wacky for me, and then I'm navigating this kind of illusion world inside. Like while I'm doing all the normal day-to-day stuff, I'm having this astral sort of experience usually during these types of times. So it's really exciting for me, actually. I don't actually pay attention to the moons because I like to be kind of surprised. I don't look at astrology or do any of this stuff, or I like to kind of be surprised at the energies that come in, because what, embrace the surprises, right? Like, just embrace it. But that's what they were saying, was that you're in accord with your experience. So that was the primary thing that I really got out of the channeling. A lot of it was interesting, and I really liked how they were saying that the divine self is trying to sort of open their eyes and express through us, and we're just sort of surrendering all of our baggage, basically, in order to allow this divine self to express her heart, right? And I really do feel that, at least in myself, that it's a feminine almost feeling to it. Now, technically it's androgynous, but when I'm in a state, especially when I'm in a state where I'm doing some of these types of channelings, or when I'm talking here very, I don't know what the word is, but just randomly, improvised, in a sort of a flow state, I'm often channeling what feels like a sort of very divine source, feminine sort of energy, usually. And then occasionally I'll switch that, and there'll be a sort of masculine type of feeling that comes through. But it's interesting that they say, essentially that the divine self is sort of the caretaker of this body self, identity self, that is sort of the child of the divine self, in a way. And it's really interesting to think of it that way. And it makes sense why in a lot of religions, and like in Christianity as well, they refer to God sort of as Father, right? And so I think actually the Christ would be the Son, the actual Son of God. So the divinity within us would be the actual Son. And then we are like, as bodies, we're just sort of like learning how to get into some sort of congruence with that thing, right? With the Christ within us. That's at least how I've framed it for myself. And that's what I've built my seeking and development around, is trying to literally embody these teachings that cause giving. So for example, they talk about the divine being able to see things as everything as divine. So I'll often literally look at stuff and be like, that is God, right? That person's God, and like really try to feel that. It's actually really weird if you do that. Let me know, actually, if you do that at all. Let me know if you've had weird stuff happen, because when you do that, I'm telling you, stuff happens. Miracles happen. Like my son had COVID, for example, and he got sick and was he had a fever and was vomiting, maybe. I can't remember, but he was really sick. And I just like really put my heart into it, seeing him as a divine being that was perfect and healed. And then I found out an hour or two later that he was like up and running around. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean that I have anything to do with that? I would say no. Sean didn't have anything to do with that. The creator healed the situation. And I could feel the healing happening as I was observing it from here. Like, my son nowhere near me. I could feel it happening, so you could call it long distance Reiki. But in this case, because we're focusing on not just cleansing out like energy centers, we're focusing on literally just uplifting the divinity of that being, uplifting that being into their divinity. That's where actually the most healing comes in. And if we know how to direct our energy at a being as well while doing that, it's not even our energy. It's just the divine will. Like, it's happening. We're not even doing it. We tell ourselves we're doing it. It's kind of confusing. We're not doing anything though. We just like to be like, oh, look what I'm doing. Look what I'm doing. But that's not totally how reality works. So, but we can position ourselves and tell ourselves whatever story we'd like to around how the healing is happening. But really what happened is the creator healed my son, and I just sort of watched that happen. I guess in sort of real time, and then found out that it worked, sort of. And I didn't have any question. I actually didn't even check in to see if it worked. But that's one of the practices that I use, and that's when we start to see these miracles. And I don't, people could get really skeptical about that. I don't take too much. What I've come to understand is that miracles are totally natural and normal, and I see this type of thing with people I'm interacting with every day, like all day long, where they just experience some kind of miracle. Usually shortly after I'm having a very deep realization about the perfection that they are. And I don't, like I said, I don't attribute it to actually Sean's efforts. It's actually Sean not being there that allows that to happen, if that makes sense. It's Sean stepping aside and allowing divinity to witness divinity that allows anything like that to even happen. And then there's also weird stuff happening, like where time seems to stop or move without my participation. I don't know how else to describe that. It's like awareness has skipped times or something. And in the past, I probably would have just been like, oh, I was daydreaming and stuff like that. And it's totally possible, but I think that just what's happening is sort of stepping in and out of linear and non-linear thinking, or egoic and 3D sort of perception-based thinking, and then more reality thinking. So that's the interesting thing. So perception, I guess we'll just get into this. So this was the topic that the galactic teams were talking about, and Ka as well, around reality and perception. So we tend to believe that like perception, what we see and hear and feel and think, that's like reality. We just tend to like assume that, right? We assume that I can look out my window here and I see the cars, and there's the houses and trees. It's all very beautiful, and there's the clouds, and it's kind of overcast, so it's just like a giant cloud actually. But and it's great, and this is reality, right? No, this is actually not reality. This is the instrumentation of our astral body. There's different names for the body, but it's an energetic body. So we actually basically mimic in the physical our astral senses. So when we smell something, we're mimicking a smell, an astral smell, sort of what's happening in the physical. But it's the energy of everything that is the reality. It's the beingness of what is now that is the reality. What we see in our perception is what allows us to frame experience in this dimension, which allows us to then have reality, or what seems to be a reality, in this dimension where we experience touch and taste and all this stuff. All of the perception is it has to be filtered through the egoic mind. It has to go through the layers in the mind that are associated with identification with the body and the personality or identity. So basically what this means is everything that we experience is not reality. Everything that we experience in our perception is not the reality. What reality is what is outside of the filters of our perception. So an example of a way to think about this is, so if you're having a conversation with your friend, right, and you tell your friend, oh, I hate green cars, right? And your friend happens to have a green car, and you forgot, let's say you forgot they have a green car. You're just talking, you don't mean anything by it. I hate green cars. You're talking, maybe you were about to go buy a car and they showed you a really ugly green car. So you're like, I hate green cars. And your friend's like, oh, like, I don't think that's called for. Like, I don't appreciate that. And you're like, what do you mean? I'm just talking. And they're like, well, look, my car's green. And they point at it and you're like, oh, I didn't realize. Now, in that moment, you're both just clearly talking about different stuff, right? It's pretty obvious there's just been a misunderstanding. Now, If the other person was like really, really, really offended, though, what you'll notice is they're not able to let go of that. They're not able to let go that you're just saying an opinion. You know, it's your perception of reality that green cars are ugly. They have a green car and they like their green car, let's say. Right? So that's how perception works, is it's all based on opinion and positionality. It's all based on narrative and karma as well. Like every single thing that you ever perceive is literally just filtered through this layer of identity, and then a sort of like understanding of what that is and what that means to you, and whether or not you want to use that thing, whatever it is, to further your own gains. That's basically what the identity does, what the ego does. Further your gains, or if the ego is a bit more mature, it will want to further the gains of the collective ego, the collective body, human body, right? Until eventually, what ends up happening is, as the person gets to, so this is the place where I'm at in my consciousness, where I jump back and forth between seeing both of these ways. So I'm sometimes in the identity and like totally lost in it, really, like totally pretty much lost, very almost unconscious. Now this is probably only like 5% of the time, but it happens still. And then most of the time I'm in a state of either just very high vibe chill, or I feel like I'm all that is and I'm just sitting doing nothing at all. That's kind of that's kind of been my my experience so far. So I've seen all of this, and this is why I can speak to it, and I can say, oh my gosh, everything that I've heard and smelled and all that, that's actually not what reality is. Like, it's mind-blowing to me. Mind-blowing to me. Because it's not that I've had an entity tell me now, right? I've seen it. So the best way to describe it is like, a good way that one of the books I read, I think it was Dr. Hawkins, he said a cat knows what it's like to be a cat, right? It just knows. We can look at a cat and guess what it's like to be a cat, but the cat knows what it's like to be a cat. So we know what it's like to be us, and that's it. So I've talked a lot about how all of our realities are very different, which is obvious. But not only that, is the perceptions, everything that we see and feel and think about is essentially mostly our ego, like giving us stuff to experience, right? So without that aspect, there's not a ton of things to actually experience anymore so much. Instead of, so for example, just to give you an example, so let's say like I walk into my house now and I'm holding that kind of state of consciousness, the non-linear, like I'm seeing reality. I might walk into my house and let's say that like there's people in there fighting each other, and then like there's all these things going on like in the house that's all exciting. I'm gonna see, oh, there's an incident or engagement occurring here between forms of consciousness, and I'm going to see if there's an opportunity for my service, sort of. Like, that's about it. That's about all that's thought. The mind is like blank. It's like, there's stuff happening, let's see if I can help. It's almost irrelevant what's happening. There's no difference between you walking in and people being really excited about something or really angry or really whatever, because it's all the same thing. It's all the same stuff. It's consciousness forms, fractals of the creator playing with each other, and you're just curious to see what's going on. It's kind of like that. You're just curious. You're like, oh, this is weird. What's this? So that's the when you are seeing reality, all of that like opinion is just like gone. It's just all gone. It doesn't matter if people are angry and things are going on. Like, I mean, it matters. It matters. When I say it doesn't matter, it sounds like I'm saying there's no compassion. The compassion's there, and actually, it's like so vast. It's such a vast compassion that it's encompassing all of it. That like it's all perfectly okay, right? And that's how you know that it's reality, because it's perfectly okay. So when you're seeing reality, that's what you'll feel like. You'll go, oh, it's perfectly okay. So it looks like I might be having some dropped frames. I think we're doing okay now, but I got a warning. Looks like it's okay now. I don't know. Anyways, if anybody has any questions or anything interesting going on, feel free to drop it in the chat, and I'll try to touch on that topic. The trick for getting into that state of perception is to literally continually remind ourselves that all of our opinions are just that. They're opinions, and they're their own. Like, our opinion is no better than any other opinion. It's all just opinions of stuff. And it's actually quite meaningless what the opinions are. We take so much stock in what people's opinions are and what our opinions are, but eventually we see that it's very, very meaningless what the opinions are. The opinions of the ego are like basically just ways for the ego to like understand the reality in a like a Newtonian physics sort of environment of linearity. It's often very, very ignorant and wrong about everything it thinks. Pretty much everything it thinks. So its opinions are irrelevant, more or less. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, but like it's it sounds mean. But it's not mean. It's just, it is what it is. And I'm talking about, the collective. All of our egos basically kind of cuckoo, right? Our egos, the best way to describe the word insanity is to just point at the ego. So we basically, if it's insane, so why would we care about its opinions, right? Right? If its opinions are about things being not good enough and bad and all these other things, we like honor the feelings, right? We honor all that, but we honor that the human feels the way the human feels, totally. But we don't need to like agree that it's true, because it's not. The ego's shown us that it doesn't know what it's doing, right? It has no idea. It's doing its best, and it's a great friend for us to have until we don't need it anymore. Right? But that's what they said. We sacrifice our child, the ego, the identity. We sacrifice the identity at the altar of divinity. This happens within us. And anyone who's done any real internal work will probably have had visions and things. And it's similar to that. You will meet your divine self. And when you do that, the experience is very different for everyone. But you meet your divine self, and you realize what you are. And at that point, it's sort of like, do I want to let go of all? Basically, what all we're doing, honestly, is letting go of all of our opinions. Really, it's that simple. We're forgiving everything, even our opinions of this is good and like this thing's good and positive. The opinion that this is good and positive means that in our reality, if we ever see anything that's the opposite of that, we're going to go, okay, but that's bad then. So any opinion has both sides to it, even if we're only speaking positively. And, that actually gets me into the next thing, speaking positively. So good vibes, like there's people here now that have gotten it into their heads that ignoring bad vibes is like the way to go. And of course, always, of course. But of course, follow your guidance, follow your own discernment. But I would just like to offer some thoughts. Harry Shannon, I'm learning everything is feeling. Yes. So there is a stage, yes, where basically every single thing moves into a more intuitive kind of feely route. It goes feely. Everything gets feely. eventually emotionality stops as well. It's replaced by a consistent joy, like a consistent, curious joy. So that's about the emotion. Um, so, but yeah, there's a stage. At first, it's like we're all mental. And then we start to open up to our feelings. That's when the heart's opening. And we're like, oh my God, all these feelings, right? And then we're like, everything's feeling. And that's what actually, like you were saying, everything's feeling. Like when you're not in the linear mind so much, you're actually going to feel the essence of stuff more. You're going to feel what it is. You don't think about what it is, you feel what it is, right? And then from there, you start to judge it. So when we're in that transition state, what we're trying to do is feel what it is and accept what it is and not judge it so much. Like forgive ourselves, forgive whoever's involved, forgive everything, right? Debbie says, I'm afraid to tell people what helps them because some don't want to hear that. And I'm a target for a long time for bullying and stuff. So I had enough of people and afraid. Yeah. I mean, sometimes people don't, I'll just say just what's coming through. So what I'm hearing, people don't like to be told generally. Most people don't like to be told what they need to hear or what is best for them necessarily. They usually have a very particular idea of what they want someone to say to them. And so when they're looking for help, they're actually a lot of times just looking for somebody to say, yeah, I agree with you. Your experience is crappy, that type of stuff. And I don't do that with people either. I don't talk to people really for that reason, primarily for that reason, because I don't know how to pretend in those types of situations. I'm not sure how to navigate it. Social conditions get very strange as we start to open up this other side of reality that we start to see. Social engagements become odd. Language becomes weird. It's hard for me to even, for a time, it was hard for me to say me. Hard for me to say I, my name, Sean. These things have no meaning. So why am I, so the mind like struggles to like reorient itself and to like be able to adorn some of these like nonsense words like I or the identity. These are not real words. These are not real concepts really anymore to my mind. So as we sort of step into that, if we go that far, then yeah, like talking with people, separating a bit, it's probably going to be pretty natural. Whenever we're trying to push what we think helps onto another, in a way, we're kind of being like, I know what's best, right? Look, I know what's best. And people don't really like that. Doesn't really land very well in my experience. So I would literally, like what I've learned is just like let people do what they want to do. Really, like, maybe try to position yourself to open yourself to chat with them about something, but like, they don't listen. That's just the long and short of it. People don't listen. At least that's how my experience has been. I'd be like, hey, so you could just do this and that would stop. And then they go, yeah, but blah, 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 blah. And they don't even hear the advice. And they're not mad at me or anything. They're not trying not to listen. That's part of it. We have to respect just like, they didn't hear the advice because they're still in the thing. They're still learning the thing, the story, the pain, whatever it is, or whatever the behavior is. If they're into like drugs or some other thing, they're learning still. And all we can really do is try to show them love, like at whatever distance we find is appropriate for us. So that would be sort of like my thoughts on that. And that's what I tend to do. So if you have any other things that are going on in your life that you want some thoughts on, I'm good at offering thoughts, and of course always just throw it away if it doesn't make sense. But a lot of what we're dealing with right now is paradox between reality and perception. So I was talking earlier about how like I'll say something and then somebody might think, oh, that was really mean. And on my side, I'm like, well, I thought it was really nice, right? But they think it's mean. And then I go, no, 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 I didn't mean that. I meant this nice thing. But because I hurt their feelings saying something that they thought was mean, maybe they are still angry. Maybe they're still angry with me. So now I'm like, well, I didn't do that though, right? That's not what I did. That's what they experienced. To them, that's what I did. But even after, and I'm like, but I didn't do it, they're still mad though, as if I did, right? They're still upset and like, you know, I don't know if I want to talk to you right now because of what you just said to me. But I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything. So these types of paradoxes will pop up. At least they have for me. And I'm like, you know, I on one hand you have to honor the experience, right? That's what they experience. They're having a lot of emotions. There's lots of energy, so the emotions are heightened as well. It seems, at least with people that I've been talking to. And so trying to give a lot of people a lot of space to just be like, oh, okay, like, you know, if you would like to be upset with me for this thing, then you can, of course. But I didn't do that thing. And if I didn't do it, what are we upset about? Right? It's pretty silly. And we actually will eventually reach that paradox of being like, oh, it's all the same thing. Nobody's actually doing anything. Because doing implies separation. But of course, that's like the highest truth, right? I'm not doing anything, there's no person here, and the universe is just experiencing itself as a single entity. It doesn't seem like that though, does it, right? It seems kind of like, no, I'm kind of like a thing running around doing stuff, and I live in a house and there's people moving dirt around outside. Right? They're not right now, actually, they left, but so next, and the next topic is universal cycles. So everything in this universe, every single thing that ever gets created, as it separates from source, goes through cycles of sort of death and rebirth until eventual like merging back into source. So everything constantly is ending and beginning anew. Everything all the time. The moment is doing that all the time, infinitely, right? And so what I think we're going to be faced with a lot in this month is some of our cyclings are either starting new or ending right now. And in those cycles, there must be a big one going on or something. I'm not sure what it is. If there's anyone who's big into astrology and knows of something going on in May, let me know. I have no idea. I don't pay any attention to any of this stuff. But I just pay attention to what comes through, really. So the energy though in May is going to be confronting us with a lot of cycle changing, I think, because some of the cycling I think isn't working for us. And so stuff just pops up to be like, hey, this is the situation. This is the situation. Right? This is ending now. And you know, one of the things that my guides kept saying to me, well, because I'm feeling lots of this pressure right now, lots and lots and lots and lots of it. They were like, release the delusion of control. So our idea, this is what is helpful for all the universal cycles and the impermanence and we get attached to this, we get attached to that, we get attached to everything. We end up feeling like this is dying and everything's over. My life's over now. Because what I thought I was is gone. Like, you know, everything I thought I was doing is over. Or seems to be dying or ending or, you know, and it doesn't seem to matter what I'm doing. Like, it just seems to be happening and I can't seem to stop it, right? You know, that's how you can tell that the universe is like, no, this thing's done. This is done. Whatever this is, it's done. There's new stuff happening now. Get on board. So sometimes the universe offers us these little challenges that are like roadblocks, right? Like different challenges we have to work through, like to be courageous and to work through it and like be successful. Other times the universe puts roadblocks up and says, stop, this is not happening anymore. It's just not happening. And the universe is you serving yourself. So if something is literally just falling away and like you're like trying so hard to hold it, but it's just not happening. And I feel for you. I do. I know. Trust me. Let it go. That's what we're being asked to do. Let it go. Just, it's gone. You thought it was something else. You thought it was going to be longer. You thought whatever, and now it's gone, and it's okay. Honor the feelings and try to sit with it. Actually, the quicker like you realize the feelings are coming up and just sit with them and like try to feel it all and just let it happen. You don't have to do anything. Just let it happen. Like try to be grateful that you're feeling sad and stuff. The people that said we're high vibe, low vibe, people that try to block out all the energy that they don't like are delaying their progress. They're delaying everything. Do you know anything about light language being aggressive, angry, and growling noises? I am experiencing this. Light language is really easily distorted. There's no reason that light language couldn't contain growling and different things like that. Generally, it doesn't. But it sounds like you have to go by your feeling of it. That's the best way I can, because I couldn't know. Light language is an interesting topic. It's not something, it is something that I can speak when I'm in the right state, and I am able to do it a little bit. I don't fully understand what I'm saying when I do it, and I only get like glimpses of what that means, of what I'm saying. So my experience with it myself is limited, but I understand how it works conceptually, and I would say that the aggressive, angry type energies are usually distortions in our field that are influencing what we're trying to bring through. That's what I would say. So if it feels kind of it's probably just a distortion in the field. Like there's some anger. Basically, you're angry, probably. More simply, you're angry, probably. And somewhere, and it could be subconscious. That's the thing. Like you may not feel angry, but there's anger in the field. Otherwise, you wouldn't be channeling through angry stuff, really. You wouldn't have a distortion that would resonate with angry languaging, and therefore the languaging in anger wouldn't come out, because it's always like attracts like. So anything you're saying, like if you're saying something that's angry, you have anger in your field, right? So it's the same sort of concept with any channeling. So channeling can be distorted really easily. Oh, feels healing like a release. Oh, yeah. That's great. Do that. Yeah, growl, yell, scream. Yeah, do it. Yes, that's a release. In shamanism, as well as in druidry, we have some practices. I think one of them's called like the venom breath, where we're like expelling our venom and we're like, ah! And it's crazy. It's very intense. It's not crazy. I shouldn't use the word crazy. I don't like that word, but it's really intense. If it feels like a release like that, if it feels good like that, I do that. Yeah, like especially if it's anger, like I almost hiss like a snake or something. I feel like a dragon or a lion, perhaps. Yeah, when that happens, I would say that's totally normal. And in this process, and you can learn how to actually do that in a very like practiced way. Like you can have angry and like troublesome experiences and then actually change or like go into a practice where you're doing that on purpose, right? I would say that's really healthy, really, really healthy to do that. It's weird. It seems weird. It freaks people out if they see you. Don't do it like, don't do it like in the grocery store, right? Or in the bank. Don't do it in the bank. But, you know, in the privacy of your own domicile, your own residence, yeah, please do that. Yeah. That's like one of the healthiest ways that I can think of to actually release angry feelings is by doing growling and yelling and stuff. Or even just curling up on the ground and crying, sobbing like a baby. I've done that too. That's lots of fun also. Right? Um, I have difficulty to feel safe. Greets from Holland. Greetings, Holland. Also, greetings, Scotland. Holland and Scotland in the house. We're worldwide. I have difficulty feeling safe also. Because so maybe I'll just talk a little bit about my experience because I have the same feeling a little bit around people. Um, when I was younger, I was robbed and assaulted. So I was uh, beaten and stuff like that. Um, and I was set up by my friends. And I learned at a young age, so around 15 or so, that humans are a lot like animals in that way. Uh, like they get their excitement going, fear, craziness going, and then they act out and do whatever. Like they do whatever. And so from that time on, I couldn't help but just constantly be on the lookout for like the next threat. Like, where is it? Who is it? Which one of them? Which one of them is it gonna be that's gonna just suddenly attack? And who are they gonna attack? Is it gonna be me? Is it gonna be someone I love? Who are they gonna attack? And so I first that started out with physical thinking, like physical attacks, but later it actually sort of morphed. I started to notice the same behavior with people emotionally attacking, and I started to like associate the same thing. So I started to notice that, oh, everyone's like kind of emotionally abusive to each other, like a lot. At least when I was growing up in my circles and stuff, right? Especially guys to each other, lots of uh, and it's all meant as jokes, but it's also still like kind of ouch, right? And they're meant to be like that. It's a masculine thing that they do, the guys do. I've done it too, you know, like I get it, but I started to notice that yeah, we're all kind of abusing each other a lot emotionally, and so I was like, okay, I get it. So I can't really trust humans how they act physically. They might attack, but also they might attack emotionally. So what I became really good at is just noticing when somebody's afraid, because that's when people attack. People attack when they're afraid. Uh, so if we can notice when they're afraid, and then just excuse ourselves from these situations, that's usually the easiest way to just avoid it. But um, the main thing that really helped me was to realize, basically, to realize that I don't have to fear them. That like I can trust the universe. Basically, is how I sort of ended up resolving that. Is, you know, it gets to this place whenever we have a fear. This is the best practice that I know of. Literally, the only practice that you even need to get past any fear. So let's say that I think that this person's about to be mean to me. So I go to approach them to talk to them, and I'm like, I'm worried they're going to be mean to me. Like, what's the worst case scenario? Like, they're mean to me, and then I feel sad. Okay. Like, so, you know? So what? We move through that and that type of thing. So it requires a certain level of like stepping out of the uh worrying about what they think about, like about us. Like it's okay if they don't think that what we think is right, and if they don't agree with us. Like, these things are, it's okay, you know? They don't have to. Um, just like we don't agree with everything they say, right? Uh, and if they don't like stuff about us, then that's okay. They don't have to. We can still show up however we want to, in peace, kindness, and all that. Um, it is really sad. It is really sad, Debbie. Yeah, it can be. It can be really sad. But it's only sad because we think, like, we kind of believe them a little bit if they say something mean. You thought you were here to protect people, but you only want to protect yourself. Yeah, I understand that feeling. I know that feeling. I guess what I'll try to say is that eventually, when you've moved on, when you've healed enough from the wounds of the past, you don't feel so much like you have to protect yourself. Um, you'll feel better. You'll be able to feel better. Hello, Johanna. I hope I pronounced that right. Welcome, welcome. No, that's okay. You're not late. You arrived precisely on time. Thank you for joining us. So we'll go into the next topic. It's you're in accord with your experience. So because you are the universe, right, and you are here creating stuff for your learning and evolution, the human self is not the universe, obviously, right? It's just a part of stuff. It's an aspect. It's clearly not the universe. So you are the awareness that is watching the human self do stuff. And that's what the universe is, the you watching. And so every single thing that arises anywhere around you was brought into fruition literally by you. No matter how much you hate it, no matter how garbagey it is, we did it. It's one of the harder realizations. It's one of the harder ones in my experience, because why would I agree to this thing that is the worst, right? There doesn't seem to be any reasoning for that. It becomes more clear when you start to remember your karma better and like get an idea of that. It becomes more clear why you did the specific lessons you did. So I would say, like, try not to worry too much about the why. Basically what I do is I focus on the, it is for my best. I believe, I have faith, I trust that even though it makes no sense at all, and it's the opposite, I hate it, in fact, it must be for my best. It must be. That's the only possibility here, actually. That's truly what I believe. And now we forget that, so it's always just coming back to trying to remember that, and trying to remember that specifically while we're looking at something that we really don't like, like something that's really hard for us in our life, primarily, or in the society, whatever it is. Yeah, I grew up in an unsafe environment, grew up being on alert. Yes, awareness. Yeah. I was in a pretty safe environment, but that's what made me realize is that even in this like middle class suburban neighborhood, I could just get like robbed and attacked by my friends. They weren't like friends. They were people I knew. And it was an actual friend, who like set it all up and like made sure I got to the place I was supposed to be so that they could jump me. It was all very like dramatic and like the friend that set me up, I didn't even do anything. I never did anything to him at all that I know of. He just befriended me and then did that. It was the weirdest thing. Anyways, so I was in a very safe environment, but I just realized it doesn't matter. People just do whatever. You never know what they're going to do. That's what made me go, what are they doing, right? And I started to study psychology actually around that time, and philosophy, because I wanted to understand the human behavior, human conditioning, and like what's happening, and how can I be, literally it was like, I need to understand this so I can be safe, so I can feel like I know what people might be doing. Oh, Jamie, hey, thanks for coming. Yeah, if you could watch the beginning, that would be great. I think you'll find this one interesting. So that's the hardest part, though, is realizing that we're in accord with everything that's arising. So again, it doesn't matter how much we hate it. I'm going through stuff right now that I don't know how to describe, other than saying, like, I just despise it. I just don't at all want that. The way that it's happening, I don't want it. But I don't have a choice. It's not up to me. And I hate it. Right? Like, but what I'm trying to do is just sit with it and just feel how much I hate it. You know, it's fine. I got hatred flowing. I'm not hateful. I'm not negative. There's just some anger and stuff coming up, right? There's things coming up. What are you going to do about it? When you let yourself feel those things, that's when they come up, and then they're gone, you know? Lost track of time? What is time anyways? It's nothing anyways. It doesn't, you know, it's just a thing people talk about sometimes. I don't know what it means. I'm kidding. I'm not really kidding. Sitting with my past traumatic experience and negative feelings reminds me of when I went through a sweat lodge ceremony. Yes. Yeah, actually, it's good you brought that up. Like, a lot of times we do stuff like sweat lodges or whatever as like these ceremonies. Maybe we do it once a month or longer, like every 6 months or something. We do these like rituals. I would just suggest that the reason that those are really effective and it all comes out is because we've been bottling it all up, and the body like will organize this, right? Like organize this ceremony because we got to get this out, right? Spirit's like, we got to get this out of us. So it makes it seem like the personality is like, oh, I know what I'll do. I haven't been to one of these in a while, or I'll do this and have this experience. And of course, I'm not trying to presume anything about your experience. I just mean in general, this is something that happens quite a bit. And we have these really big releases. I would say that what I've learned is just like, those are amazing. Do those for sure. Anything that works. Especially if you come out of it going, yeah, that was releasing. Like, I try to do it day by day, just in the middle of every moment. Like, if I feel it come up, I just try to like feel it, whatever it is, and just let it go. Like, feel it, and then I try to take a moment to like consider, what belief was it as well. Like, what belief was it that caused me to think this way? Because that's the belief I have to look at and realize that belief isn't true as well. And that will actually end the belief isn't true, I forgive it all. And then I probably won't really have that much of an experience of that type of thing in that exact area again. Because we have so much sediment and crap in us, we have to do this a lot. And so the spiral staircase that they were talking about, the way I could see it in my mind's eye was like, in the center of it, there's like a pillar of experience going straight up and down. So as we're going up the spiral, we're always looking in to the experience, and the experience is just right here. We're just going up and around it. The experience goes up and down with us. So as we cycle higher, we then look at the same experience or the same type of lesson from a higher perspective. And then we go through it again. And then we look through it at a higher perspective and do it again. So depending on our own rate of healing and letting go and forgiveness and things like that, we may end up looking at the same exact type of cycle like a whole bunch of different times. But usually we learn something each time, right? We learn something, we get better at it each time. And so we may cycle through the same types of relationships a couple times until we realize, oh, never mind, or whatever it is. And then later, we may not cycle through the relationships again, but in our consciousness, we may just revisit from a higher place and go, oh, I see that relationship so differently now. Like, I can see, like, I thought that they were a jerk to me the whole time, but I can see that I was actually also a jerk to them the whole time. So we were both just jerks to each other. I can just see that now. because I'm looking at it from a higher vantage point. I'm looking at it from truth instead of like my own victimized state that I was in the past. So yeah. Yeah, I know. I knew you were joking, Jamie. I knew. Um yeah, so what else was it? I think the last thing was that they told me that these in the last stream I talked about getting downloads and uh energy transmissions, just like I keep feeling like everyone's getting them. Lots of people are getting them. And so if you're feeling that like you're getting these knowings coming in and like it feels really cool and stuff, um I would say like really try to feel into that. Really try to feel into what that is. Uh Especially if you're on the fence with a lot of stuff in your life and you're trying to make decisions. Like first of all, I want to help you release pressure. We think we make decisions here, but we don't really so much. Most of our decision making is like us convincing ourselves that we decided on something. We don't actually choose that much here. We just kind of choose how we frame experience. Was it loving or was it fearful? That's really all we choose. The rest of it is more or less divinely willed. The creator wills, and then we experience. Is kind of the best way to see it. So when we're trying to choose a bunch of stuff in our life, we can engage in all the thinking and all the thoughts about it and all the feeling. But could you totally actually choose the other thing? Really? I'm suggesting that you have you're doing both simultaneously. So it's all happening at once. So it's all infinitely occurring, basically. So there's no choice to be made, more or less. It's really odd way to think about it, but we can literally just relax on the choices. Like, you know, unless there's really something pressuring you, usually the universe doesn't really rush us to act, usually, too much. Not nearly as much as we tend to. So if you're trying to make big decisions, you know, you don't have to make sweeping generalizations about anything. You can just see what happens, you know? Just go with the flow, see what happens, and just see how things are meant to land. And actually, I think a lot of us will see that if we do that, everything's just fine. Everything's fine, you know? We just let it do its thing, and it turns out okay. Like, I think it actually, the more we resist, like, or the more we like really get involved, that's when we actually tend to make things worse, because from our emotions we start to stir the pot up and like say this, say that, tell this person this thing and do this. And a lot of times when we're doing that from emotionality, sometimes we're dumping on people, other times we're hurting their feelings, or we're saying something bad about ourselves, or we're doing something, right? And you know, so we can create situations, make situations worse. Like everyone knows when they're like, oh my God, my boyfriend or my girlfriend feels like they're leaving me. And then they just freak out and like just constantly spam their phone to try to like fix it. And because they just want to fix it right now. I'm sure most people have had that type of experience. And whenever we're feeling desperate like that to do anything like that, that's time to just stop, right? Have a popsicle or a piece of pie. Just chill for a minute, because the emotions are going to push you into a frenzy, which is going to cause you to do stuff that's going to suck, probably. It's going to suck for someone. Maybe it doesn't suck for you, but for someone it's probably going to suck because you're emotional and you're getting all out of sorts. And there's nothing wrong with being emotional. It's only if we start to act and stuff out of alignment with things. It's totally fine to be emotional. How do you personally feel through and explore your downloads? Honestly, man, they just pop like a piece of popcorn in my mind, and I try to just feel it. And so I stop what I'm doing if I'm in the middle of something. A lot of times I'm in the middle of things. Who knows what I'm doing? I'm doing anything, and these things happen. I'll stop to try to just feel what it is, and then usually I'll have an idea. This is for my audience or the audience, or like I don't even see it as my audience. I don't see a my really, but this is for the YouTube channel, or it's not, or this is to share, or it's not really to share. I get an idea of that. I don't really have to think about that too much. The download itself is pretty much fully formed and unpacked. Like it's as I experience it, I know what it is. In other words, immediately. So there's no like there's nothing to do. It's just there it is. So then depending on how that happens and what I'm feeling, and if I can feel like I understand the source of it, they have flavors is the best way I could describe. Like they have different flavorings. The energy has different flavors, so I can kind of discern a little bit. That's actually one of the reasons that I just say that I get downloads from the galactic teams, because I'm not always totally sure, to be honest. And I also think that there's a lot of negatively distorted messages that get thrown in as well. I don't think that. I know that for certain. So whenever you're listening to any channeled messages or any of these galactic things, just use your discernment. If if it's freaky, it's probably just garbage. So, just don't worry about it. It's it's a task to learn how to let go of the freaky downloads. Like you might get visions of like because the negative entities want you to be scared, right? So they might give you a vision that like the earth just blows up in a giant volcano thing or something, and then you're sort of like you're sort of like, oh, is that's gonna happen? Like it's hard to tell the difference between like an intuitive knowing and a download that's been negatively distorted. It's not easy to tell the difference. But the clear difference is that one is intended to cause you fear and one is not. That's the way to tell. And then as far as anything else goes, it's literally practice. Jamie said my downloads aren't coming through that clearly. Yeah, it's no worries. Like, mine weren't for a long time, and then they got clearer and clearer a little bit, sort of. Like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. It just turned on for me. I didn't learn it, so it just started happening. So I don't really know what's going on with any of that stuff. But I think for me, honestly, I think it's just my intentions every morning. I literally get out of bed and like open my eyes, and I just think immediately. I'm thinking today I'm going to see myself. Today I'm going to see the truth. Today I'll receive the messages I need to hear. I'm going to know what I need to know the moment I need to know it, and I'm safe and I'm loved. And then I go about my day. Now, because I'm sort of setting the intention to see myself, to know myself, I see a lot of painful stuff all day. So I'm saying this because when we ask to see ourselves and to know ourselves so that we can be free of our pain and our burdens, we have to see our pains and our burdens. And that can be hard while we're still resisting bad feelings or negative feelings. I said bad feelings. They're not bad. They're just negative polarity. When we're having the negative feelings, we can realize that it's through this that we're going to be able to have a much more lightened, experience here. A much more like awake and aware and conscious experience. It's because we're feeling all of this crap that we're going to feel better. And I think all of us that, like, if we're truly honest, will be like, yeah, it has been hard. I've seen a lot of crap about myself. I've let go of a whole lot of crap. I do feel a lot better overall. Sometimes it's hard to remember just how bad we felt a couple years ago, right? Sometimes it's kind of hard to remember. I know for me, like I almost forget like how deep in pain I was. I almost forget. Yeah. You know? So yeah, I do. It does make sense. Jamie says, I trust it'll happen when slash if it's supposed to. I seem to get bits connected to people and things, if that makes sense. I don't feel like I have to know. I'm just rolling with it. Exactly. That's all you can do, right? Totally. Just roll with it. And you know, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's right. It's just details, right? Downloads are just details. It's all words for the same stuff. Really, at the end of the day, love each other and be kind, right? That's the download. You know? That's the message, really. They told me that they have beings, the galactic teams have beings that literally just sit there beaming out messages to the collective that are like this. Like that they're fourth density light beings that just sit there doing this all day. And they rotate. Like who's on thought beaming duty. So if they're like galactic downloads, but then there's also downloads that, like I call the galactic stuff downloads because I can feel that it's like an entity dropping it into my consciousness, or it seems to be. But that happens with so many different entities. Like I feel that also with the dragon spirits that I work with, as well as Merlin and archangels, and so it's all the same thing to me. It's all the same thing. I don't really see much of a difference. But I do call the downloads galactic stuff. Everything else, it's just like, oh, I'm speaking with spirit, I guess. I don't know why they're different to me. I don't think they're actually different. I don't think it's any different at all. But in my mind, that's kind of how they're separated, I guess. So yeah, so that was about an hour and a half almost. I think that's about it for today. And so I'm going to be going live tomorrow. It's Tuesday, right? So I'm not sure exactly what time yet, but we'll figure it out. It's all good. Thank you everyone for joining. Yes, go get some pie, get some coffee and cake and all this stuff. Get waffles and all the delicious treats. And as our body gets bigger and bigger, we can just be like, I'm not the body, and just eat more. Right? That's what I'd love to do. That would be amazing. And you actually, that brings me to one more other topic. You may actually find that your appetite just starts to fall away a little bit. I don't think I've eaten in like 2 days or something. I have no idea. It doesn't matter. It's oh, maybe I ate. Anyways, it doesn't matter. You may notice this because it's been happening to me for a little while now. It's almost that the appetite just isn't quite there. Really just, you just don't think to eat. It's not a planned thing, but it's just, I don't want to eat anymore. Thank you so much. Oh, hi, Camila. Thank you everyone. Thank you, Harry. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, E. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate you. I hope you guys have a beautiful day, beautiful night, and I'll be going live tomorrow as well. So thank you again. Take care, everyone.